Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I've been wanting to start a new series called Coffee Chats or something like that. If you guys have a better name for it, definitely let me know because I haven't figured it out yet. But I've been thinking a lot about the kinds of things I actually talk about on a day-to-day basis with my friends and my family, and I feel like I haven't really reflected that yet here. And so I wanted to start this off today. If you like it, definitely show me down below by liking it. Consider subscribing. I really want this to be an opportunity for me to hear from other people and to connect about some of the issues that I really do spend a lot of time thinking about. Anyways, today's topic is definitely based on immigration. As you guys know, I just recently got my green card, but I was born in London and I'm also ethnically Sri Lankan. I guess that's also part of the inspiration for today too. Recently, Sri Lanka has been going through a huge economic crisis, which can only be put down to the corrupt government. And this government corruption is nothing new. I definitely don't think I am the best person to be speaking on this, mainly because there are such talented journalists out there and people on the ground who are speaking about their experiences under this regime. And so I want to put some links down below. I would really suggest checking them out to learn more about the crisis. But I do think that I should be amplifying voices rather than just adding my own voice from afar. I also wanted to point out that this is not the first time that the Sri Lankan government has screwed up. Corruption has been running rampant for years, and even within the same family that's governing the country, there have been war crimes when the civil war was going on, which was a 30-year-long civil war. There were so many atrocities that occurred and so many innocent lives that were taken. Also, there's just been historic oppression of minorities, hoarding of cash and resources by the same family and their cronies, and all of these other things that are going on. And I did get the opportunity to attend a protest yesterday in Times Square, which was so lovely. And also it's part of the reason why I want to talk about this today, because I just feel like the immigrant experience is so wild. I never really thought of myself as an immigrant until I honestly have been doing this visa stuff. It's wild because I grew up as a second generation immigrant, and so my immigration status was never really an issue because I was born in the UK and I never had to worry about that, if that makes sense. Anyways, a little bit about myself. So I was born in London, as I said. My parents immigrated to the UK at different stages. My dad came to the UK when he was only 18 years old, and my mum joined him 6 years later, I think, when they got married. And then I came along in 1997. Actually, funnily enough, my brother was born a couple of years before me in 94, and when he was born, his first language was Sinhalese. So when he went to school, he didn't really know how to speak English properly. He actually struggled a lot with that. And so when I was born, my parents made an active effort to raise me in English, I guess, so that I would do better in school, because they saw from my brother that he struggled and had a hard time adjusting. That's another interesting thing, right? I feel like from day one, I have had English and the British experience be the kind of main experience in my life. But at the same time, I have had a lot of Sri Lankan community and Sri Lankan experiences that have formed who I am too. And that kind of brings me to thinking about my experience in the UK. When I was a kid, I went to Catholic primary school because I was raised Catholic. And it was quite interesting because I was definitely a minority in the classroom. There were a lot of white kids and I was one of few non-white kids, but it seemed okay. And also because I went to the school from the age of 3 to 11, I didn't really realize I was that different. Instead, what I did see and experience a little bit was just weird comments here and there, like, oh wow, your English is really good, kind of with the implication of for someone who's not from here. And so those little comments were there, but I didn't really recognize them until I was a bit older, until I was going for different opportunities in my community, even applying to Harvard. If you guys saw my video about my admissions file, my interviewer definitely picked up on my immigrant background and kind of commented on that too, which is interesting because why is that relevant? I guess it is relevant, but why is it so relevant? Growing up in that context, I definitely didn't realize that I was different. I just thought of myself as being British, and I didn't really think too deeply about being Sri Lankan. The main difference was just that I was a different color. And so I think I tried to balance that out by working really hard. That is a thing that I think resonates with a lot of second generation immigrants. A lot of my friends in primary school were also people of color, second generation immigrants. And we were working. Sorry about the lighting, guys. I feel like it's such a weird day right now. It was so sunny and now it's not super sunny anymore. But anyways, I can't control the weather. But I do feel that this experience is universal for a lot of second generation immigrant kids. If you're the same as me, then maybe you resonate with this, but I've always felt that I was working so hard, not only to prove myself and to prove that I deserve to exist in that space, but also to make my parents proud because they gave up a lot of stuff to come to this country and to raise me and to work these jobs that, you know, they could be doing different things. I just always felt that, not that pressure was being put on me, thankfully, although I know for other people that might have been the case, but I definitely felt that I wanted to do my parents proud and do their experience justice. And maybe that's something you resonate with. Definitely comment down below if you do, because I sometimes feel like people don't understand that. And I definitely think I started to think more about these things after Brexit, because Brexit happened when I was 18. It was right before I left the UK to come to the US for school. And I just saw such a surge in xenophobia. People had made little comments here and there when I was a kid, being called specific derogatory names for brown people, little comments here and there about my English and about my ability, but everything blew up after Brexit. I remember walking around London with some friends and someone yelling at us to go back, like very aggressively and loudly, whereas before it was just little murmurs here and there. And I also heard my parents, who both worked in service sector jobs, like facing people every day, people coming in and telling them to go back and saying all of these mean and very rude things. As a Londoner, as a Brit, you know, this is the country I was born in and I've been a citizen there. It's probably the one identity I actually hugely identify with, because 18 years of my life was spent calling this place home. It's honestly just so alarming because I find it so hypocritical. The United Kingdom basically colonized the entire world pretty much, and now, even though a lot of those colonies are now independent, it's kind of crazy that we even have something called the Commonwealth, you know? Like, what does that even mean? I know that in Jamaica recently, they've basically been trying to kick out the royal family and say like, look, we're done with you. And I kind of feel the same way. I'm like, you came to our country, reaped all the benefits from it, and now people like me and my family are not going to be treated the best, or even people from the Caribbean who are part of the Windrush generation being turned away because they weren't given passports back then. It's so hypocritical, and the UK definitely, I feel, gets away with so much of this racism and prejudice because a lot of people think the US kind of outshines it in that respect, but I just don't think it's true, and it's honestly just so disgusting to hear that rhetoric again and again and again, especially now that I'm older and I actually understand what's going on and what's being said and the history behind everything. It makes me feel really sad because that is an identity I really resonate with, but at the same time, how can I reconcile that with my ancestry and the struggles of my family for generations? You know, it's a tricky balance to try and strike. I guess that kind of leads to my Sri Lankan background. As I said, I grew up in London, but I definitely feel like being Sri Lankan is a huge part of my identity too. Buddhism is definitely one of the main religions in Sri Lanka. And so after going to church every Sunday, we would go home, have lunch, and immediately go to the temple where we would have Sinhalese lessons. I would also take Buddhism and cultural lessons too and learn about that, because for my parents that was really important for us to have this understanding of our identity and where we came from. I definitely felt that I grew up in a very Sri Lankan household. My parents also speak in Sinhalese every day. I can speak Sinhalese. My brother and sister can speak it, although I will say that I have the best linguistic ability out of the three of us. And the other thing is that there is a huge Sri Lankan community in London. A lot of the people I went to school with were Sri Lankan, whether they're Sinhalese or Tamil, and I just really enjoyed that. You know, there was such a cultural imprint around me that made me feel part of a Sri Lankan community, and I definitely miss that these days. I'm living in Midtown East. There are just very clinical looking buildings everywhere. But it's really funny because even on my own these days, like, I have really connected to Sri Lanka through food. Growing up, I used to hate eating Sri Lankan food, to be honest. We would eat Sri Lankan food every single day. I was always like, oh, I can't wait to be older and I'll make my own food. I'll have salads and burgers and all of that kind of stuff, which I definitely do eat. I have been surprised at how much Sri Lankan food I try and cook and all of the things that I have gone out of my way to buy to be able to make these foods. And it's just something I never thought I would be doing. At the same time, I think it's really interesting because I've also experienced people telling me, oh, you're not Sri Lankan enough. I'm a dual citizen. I have citizenship in Sri Lanka too. Yes, I've only been there 7 times, and 2 of those times was before I was 3 years old, so I don't really remember those times. But at the same time, so much of my family's life is based in Sri Lanka. Like I said, my parents' generation is the first generation in our entire ancestry to even move away from the country. On the one hand, I find myself kind of agreeing with those people and saying, you know what, you're right, I don't have the same experience as you, but why is that such a bad thing? I remember a couple of pointed comments coming from friends like, well, you don't really know what it's like, or you're not really Sri Lankan. And I just feel like it's very gatekeepy of identities. I think it's very silly because at the same time, yes, I don't have the lived experience of being there, but my family does. My family and I, we help out in whatever way we can our family back home, so we're very much connected to the situation there. And I feel like that's the whole point of a diaspora, isn't it? To have communities around the world, but having that central hub back home. Isn't that the whole point of immigration? And even sometimes going back to Sri Lanka and the way that other people think about me or have looked at me or given me weird kind of vibes because I'm not from there. What I find in countries like Sri Lanka, and I see this in other countries too, is that there's kind of a big divide between the ordinary Sri Lankan and then the hi-fi Sri Lankans, as we say, or just the richer classes, you know, the upper middle class, people who exclusively go to English speaking schools or only speak English in their homes and wear really fancy kind of Western style clothes, whatever that means, Western style clothes. There's already a divide there because that's not really Sri Lankan either, is it now? So I don't understand why those kind of people feel that they can point fingers at me and say, oh, you're not Sri Lankan enough. I don't know. That's a whole like thing that I have where I feel that for years I wasn't really able to be Sri Lankan openly because I always felt that other people were going to tell me, oh, you think you're this but you're not. And at the same time, I wasn't British enough either. So that's where the third layer comes in, where I came to the US when I was 18. Over the course of these 4 years, I definitely feel that my identity has shifted a lot. I don't know who's watching out there, if you're from England or if you're from the US or somewhere else, but even my voice has changed a lot. I used to have a very British accent, and now, at least for me, I can definitely hear that it's a bit of a mix between the American and the British. People in England tell me I sound super American. People in America think that I sound kind of British, but also a little bit American. I'm not sure. Tell me down below. I'd love to know what you guys think my accent is. It's strange because I feel like being a student in any country is such an interesting experience because A, you're actively surrounded by people all the time in a very social way, so you're always going to be learning about what's going on. The other thing is that college campuses in America, but also everywhere in the world, I feel, are the place where politics is so openly discussed. Also, I attended college during the Trump era, which just added a whole other level of there was something in the news every single week to be talking about. And so I definitely think that I strayed away a little bit from British politics and became quite focused on American politics with my peers talking about these issues, trying to understand them, trying to figure out how they impacted me, my family, but people around the world, even people in America. And you'd be surprised at how many people stopped me in my tracks and were saying things like, you're not from here, so you don't understand this, or you don't know what this is, you have no right to say this, what do you mean, blah, blah, blah. It's such a closed-minded way of looking at things from my perspective. I remember on one specific occasion, someone tried to tell me that I didn't understand racism because I wasn't from America. These are Harvard students I'm talking about. I'm not trying to say Harvard students are intelligent or anything like that, but there is an extreme vetting process that goes on to get people into a school like that, and for these people to have experienced such levels of cognitive dissonance that they think saying things like that is A, okay, or even B, valid, is just so silly to me. I feel that colleges are the kind of place where we're all going to have an open conversation through the experiences of others by learning from other people. I truly believe that a lot of people that I went to school with saw the US in isolation, and I truly felt that my international friends did a really good job of trying to explain, hey, even though this is happening over here, this is going to create a wave around the world, you know, this is going to affect a lot of other things, and that's also equally as important. As an immigrant, it's very hard to escape the larger context, especially for me with my British background and also my Sri Lankan ancestry. I feel like I very much had a sense of the world in a very broad way that helped me understand the much larger implications of what was going on. It's just a perspective that I'm very grateful I have, but that I wished other people actually paid more attention to, because it is quite nuanced, you know, it's quite nuanced, and in addition to their perspective, it could be a great way to really understand how these things have such snowball effects in our world. The central point of this whole chat is that immigrants often get to have the best of both worlds, or in my case, the best of three worlds, right? But at the same time, I feel like we're often othered. At times, I'm being told, oh, you're not this enough, or you're not that enough, and that's why you can't speak about this, and that's why you don't have the right to say that. Isn't the whole point of immigration, that we learn from others, that we bring our skills and our knowledge and our experiences and we share them and we grow from that. I think it's really important that we try to break down those barriers, and instead of use these differences as a way of partitioning people off, try to use them as a way to educate ourselves and learn more about things that we don't know about. And I know that being an immigrant, I've been in such a privileged position to learn about all of these different experiences, second generationally through my parents, and as a first gen immigrant now, just being here and having to grow so quickly and learn so quickly about the differences in this society compared to where I'm from. I feel like it's been one of the most important experiences of my life. Wherever you go, there are good people, there are bad people, there's suffering, there's extreme wealth, there's disparity, there's inequality, there are so many things. I do have to acknowledge my own privilege being someone who grew up, yes, fast gen, low income, but relatively comfortably if we think about the grand scheme of the world in London, was able to attend Harvard here and has never gone hungry or worried about having a roof over my head. I've had a lot of privilege, and there are a lot of immigrants who, as we know, don't get to have the same experience. And so I am incredibly lucky. And just going to that protest yesterday was the tip of an iceberg. That was the smallest thing I could have done to show my support. So yeah, I'm just really curious about you guys. If you have any ideas about this, definitely comment down below. If you've experienced the same things, I'd love to hear about it, and hopefully we can have a conversation. Definitely reach out to me on Instagram. I'm super active there. And if you like the video, please give it a like. And yeah, I'm hoping that this will be a permanent segment on my channel. So please let me know if you enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll have another coffee chat sometime soon. Even though it's actually really funny because I don't even have coffee with me, so I guess I can't call it coffee chats. I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I'll see you soon.